Hello, TEF. Today we're going to be talking about are the Bible documents reliable? To start off with, I wanted to share something with you that not too many people know about. I just recently found this out, that our church, actually not this building, but the Chinese church, Thanksgiving Church, right outside, when it was built on solid ground. The foundation was very solid. But then what the engineers over these past few years have found is that the church building, again, not TEF's building, but the Chinese church building, is built a little too close to the stream. And those of you who know our church, you know our church is built next to kind of like a water canal. Well, what does water do to the ground? It softens the ground. So the Chinese church building, what they have done in the past is to prevent the church from sinking, is they're pumping concrete into the foundation, more and more concrete. But eventually, they're going to have to kind of totally redo the church there. But in the meantime, they're trying to strengthen the foundation by pumping in concrete, because currently the foundation is very soft. It's very weak. And that's not very good for a building to be on a weak foundation. The reason I share that is because the foundation of our faith is Jesus Christ. And how we know Jesus Christ is from the Bible. Romans 10:17, Paul says, faith comes from hearing the words of Christ. So how do we know that what we have, the Bible that we have today, how do we know that this Bible is reliable, the documents that we have is reliable? So I wanted to start with introducing our panelists today. Pastor Austin is our youth pastor here at TEF, and he has done some extensive studies on this topic, and so it's great to have Pastor Austin here. We have Chris Carter. Chris Carter is a dear friend and a wonderful, faithful member of TEF, him and his family. Chris teaches at Concordia. He teaches social sciences. And in the past, he's also taught different things on this topic, on this very topic of do we know that the Bible documents are reliable? So he's going to share from the information from the research that he has done. But I wanted to ask you guys something to start off with is, so the Bible has been the number one bestseller for, 1,000 years, or however long that we had books around. Why do you think the Bible has been the number one seller for all of these years?
Okay, well, I will say, just I come at it from a standpoint of history, and the very first book ever printed, right, was the Gutenberg Bible in the 1450s. But long before that, there were copies made and distributed, and I think, it has the power of truth, and I'm saying that from a Christian perspective, but people sought truth just as we seek truth today, and you're going to find the answers that you seek there. And so it becomes something that transcends history because those answers are unchanging and available. So I think that's really goes a long way to explaining why it's the number one bestseller. Even today, in a world filled with divisiveness and many different perspectives and faiths and many people who do not have a particular faith, it still is this great seller.
Okay. Actually, you mentioned about Gutenberg. Can you explain what is Gutenberg?
Oh, I'm sorry. So Gutenberg is credited with being the inventor of the modern printing press. And with his invention in the 1450s, really the modern book as we have was created. And his first printing was the Bible, now called the Gutenberg Bible.
Okay.
And there's very few copies of them left. But
and you have a few of those?
I have them right in my attic. No, there is one at the United States Library of Congress, though. There is an original, one of the first 16 books ever printed in the world.
So if you have a copy of the Gutenberg Bible, I'd like to meet you. But, Pastor Austin, why do you think out of any other book in history, why has the Bible been the number one seller out there?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chris on the truth of Scripture. But I was also doing some research and just thinking about I think actually you have it in the notes, but 2 Timothy 3:16, all scripture is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. And so one thing about the Bible is the authority and power that it has too as well. I was doing some research and I noticed that the Bible is actually banned in many countries that are a little bit more authoritarian or more religious because they fear the power of scripture. And for Christians who are persecuted or who are in countries where the Bible is not accessible, they seek this. They want Scripture to give them authority and power in what they do. And so I think there's an aspect of the Bible, if you get a chance to really read it and compare it to other texts or other religious articles, this thing has a lot of authority and power about who God is and who his heart is for too. And so there's an aspect of, when we read the Bible, I hope you can see that, don't take it for granted, but really understand that there's a lot of power in what God has to say in our lives and who he is and how we can speak to others because of it too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't realize also another key factor is that the Bible is probably one of the most, or if the most controversial book in the world.
Correct.
And Christians and not even non-Christians understand the power of that, which is why it's banned in so many countries. So good point. I wanted to talk about, this is, you're going to see this on the PowerPoint right now, but the unity of Scripture. And this is very interesting, just the diversity of Scripture, but yet also having one unifying theme. Did you know, and again, you're going to see this in the PowerPoint here, did you know more than 40 authors from different backgrounds were used to write the Bible, including a king, a shepherd, a fisherman, a physician, and many more, yet all were unified in their message. It's highly unlikely today that even 10 people of the same profession could write on one subject and have it be complete agreement. The Bible also was written over a period of 1,500 years. Consider the possibility of one book of any subject being able to maintain its integrity over a period of 200 years, much less than 1,500 years. Also, the Bible contains 66 books of various forms of literature, including poetry, history, prophecy, letters, sermons, and biographies. It's written in 3 languages, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Biblical events took place in 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and Europe. The authors of the Bible wrote during periods of wartime, peacetime, and even in captivity. The subjects spoken of in the Bible were controversial and speculative. If individuals had written this book without the full direction and inspiration of God, there would be mass confusion. But that is not the case. Authorship, time, number of books, languages, continents, conditions set this book apart from all other books of history. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of, make that point is that this book written in so many different, such a vast variety of authors of different kinds of literature, but yet there's one central message, and that's God wanting to redeem, his people. So, but let's be honest. I just want to state something obvious, which are the problems. Here's the problems that we face today. And this is what you may be asking, even as a Christian, and some of your non-Christian friends are also asking. Here's the problem. The fact is we do not have the original documents of the Bible, right? We don't have...
That is correct.
Yeah, we don't have what Paul wrote to the church at Corinth. We don't have that. We don't have the book of Genesis. We don't have the original author's writings. So, problem. Also, here's another problem, a potential problem. There's many different manuscripts that we have of the Bible. There are over 300,000 different discrepancies. Scholars call this variance. Over 300, maybe even close to 400,000 differences among the manuscripts. So those are problems, right? Those are some problems. So let's address some of those things. We wanted to focus more on the New Testament because the Old Testament is it's pretty set in terms of inspiration. There's not a whole lot of debate over that. But let's talk a little bit about the Old Testament. How do we know that the Old Testament is reliable? Kind of wanted to open it up there for you guys. How do we know that the Old Testament is reliable?
Well, I would just start again by approaching this from an archaeology and a history sort of perspective and say, we are at an age where we are making many discoveries of ancient things. We have technology now that wasn't available even 10 or 20 years ago. And so in the last, well, I would say 70 years or so, we've gained a lot more knowledge than we've had in the previous 2,000. And we've discovered, and I'm thinking of the Qumran scrolls in particular, the Dead Sea Scrolls, we've discovered copies of the Old Testament books that are exactly the same as the Old Testament books that we had prior to the discovery of these manuscripts. And so that tells us that over the last 2,000 years, they haven't changed, because here's these manuscripts over 2,000 years old, some as old as 2,200 years old, that have the same book of Isaiah in it that we have as well. So that, at least for these last 2,200 years, is very confirmational that we don't have to wonder if the Old Testament we have today is that which existed at least 2,200 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. The Qumran, otherwise known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, the caves that we see, and actually you'll see a picture of this. That's in front of Cave 4A that you see a picture of, where they found the Isaiah scrolls of the Dead Sea. But the Dead Sea Scrolls, yeah. I don't know if you know the story behind that. Did you hear it?
Well, I'd love for you to tell it.
Okay.
I don't want to talk too much. So it's an interesting story from an historical perspective.
Yeah, so there was this kid, literally a little shepherd boy in 1947. They're hiking, just playing around the Dead Sea area, and just throwing rocks into these caves. As you can see in this picture, you can see this one cave here, but there are literally dozens of caves in this area. So he's throwing some rocks into the cave, and he hears a crash, something that breaks. And so he climbs into the cave, and he notices this. He broke a jar, and in the jar were these scrolls. And so that's where this shepherd boy takes it to his dad. His dad looks at it. His dad's he's a Bedouin, he's a shepherd, so he's not educated, doesn't know what it is. He just knows that it's old, and he takes it to a friend, who takes it to a historian, who takes it to an archaeologist, and hence they discover the Dead Sea Scrolls. What's interesting is this was 1947. Okay, so the Bible that you have right now, the Bible that you have here of the Old Testament. A lot of it was taken from the oldest manuscripts that we had at the time. The oldest manuscripts that we had, that you have of this Bible, of the Bible that you have, was taken from what we call the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text that we have, that we interpret the Old Testament and translate the Old Testament, was dated 900 AD. Okay, 900 AD. Okay, that's where you have the Old Testament that we have today.